Hi everyone, my name is Chevis Watkinson and I am an industrial designer as well as an adjunct professor at Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, where I teach 3D modeling and not only what buttons to push, but how to do it and the reasoning behind what you're doing and what is the best method to set yourself up for success. So this is the intro and the first part of the series that I'll be doing. And this is about setting up yourself for success. What do you need before you even start the 3D model? The subject matter that we're going to use is this pedal car that I found, created for Audi or inspired by Audi. The reason I picked it is several components, various manufacturing techniques, as well as some nice contour lines and some surfacing that we want to pay close attention to. So with that said, let's dive in here. Now, the first thing I like to do is I like to create some reference documents. Either I can have them up on my wall to look at, or I can have them digitally on my screens. So with that said, I want to know what all I'm modeling. So quick, simple call-out sheet, 4 wheels, everything else. It may seem basic, but it allows me just to quickly look at, check off what I've modeled. It also helps me to keep track of how much time I may have left based off of what components I have left. Now, one thing, if you're new to 3D modeling, I really recommend, whether you're a freelance designer, you work for corporate design, or you work for a consultancy firm, is as you model things, start keeping a logbook. So if this is your first time modeling this kind of a wheel, from start to finish, track your time. And the reason for that is eventually if someone comes to you and has something else very similar that they want to model, one of the questions is going to be, well, how long is it going to take, or how much is it going to cost? And that's all equated to how long it's going to take you to do the model. If you have a reference book, you can go back and look and say, okay, well, I've done a wheel like this before. It took me about an hour. So that's my schedule I'm going to give. That's what I'm going to bill for. So very valuable tool. Now, as we go on, what I would like to do next is to create a simple exploded view of all the components. Just again, it's a nice, quick, simple thing I like to do. I don't necessarily spend a whole lot of time styling it or making it pretty. If I'm not putting this into a presentation deck, or if I'm just using it for a reference document, then, how fast, how much time do I really need to spend on it? So what I then do is, again, with the callouts. Now, these callouts are different. What I want to know is, what are the materials that I'm using, what is the color, what is the finish, and potentially what is the manufacturing technique. Now, why this is important is, let's look at this support bar here. And if we look at that, we're saying that it's going to be bent stainless steel chrome plated. So the reason that that's important is that means that we have some minimum radiuses that we are going to have to apply. We also want to know what is the material thickness of the part, which then equates back to what the radius is that we have a minimum part. If you don't know this information, or if you don't have this, then you really want to interact with your engineers or even the manufacturer to learn that. Also, this kind of sometimes applies to the styling. The first initial, we'll call it inspirational concept sketch, may not have taken that into consideration exactly. So when you do your radiuses, you want to understand, how does this affect the overall design? Either you're going to reevaluate it or you're going to make some tweaks and adjustments, however it goes. So now that I've got all this document and I know what I'm modeling, I like to start off by trying to figure out how I'm going to model it, or dissecting the actual part. So with that said, we are going to come down here. Let me just erase this. We don't need that. And we're going to create our forms. So I'm going to pull up my model again. And what I'm going to start to do is to really dissect the form. So I can look here and I'm going to read this. This is where understanding highlights helps, and it's the same as the marker renderings that you've been taught or learning. You can see that darkest darks, lightest lights, which means that this bows out and then it cuts under, because that is what the highlights are hitting. So if I was to kind of just draw a cross section, highlight comes from here, it's going to hit here and light it up, and then as it cuts under, you're going to see a shadow because the highlight's not hitting, or the light source is not hitting that. So with that said, the way I read this is for it to kind of bow in a little bit. It's going to come out. It's going to go over a radiused highlight. It's going to cut back under. It appears as if there's a little bit of a bow here. Now, the reason I say it appears is I know that it may not be a perfectly straight line because this is also a structural element, and a slight bow in the part or the surface is stronger than a straight line. So again, checking with your engineers if you don't have this knowledge really helps, because you may have to go back to the industrial designer, or you may need to modify your design to say, hey, I need to incorporate this. But then as we get down here, you can see it curves, it cuts under, and then drops back down. That's going to be that highlight. Now, what I do is I'll create a series of these so that I can best understand what's going on. Let's just do another one here where it's going to curve under. And you can see the curve based on the shadow, how much it transitions is a little bit more back here. So let's just kind of go out. We're going to tuck out, tuck under, it looks like. We're going to kind of come down. And I'm not worried about the other parts in there. I don't need that. Now, what this allows me to do is to start looking at potentially how I'm going to build the surfaces, or what surfaces I'm going to build. So if I look at this, you can see here that this has the potential to be the start of a surface, as well as, we kind of come up here. And what this is going to help me to do is to determine what are the surfaces that I'm going to build primarily first, or secondary, or tertiary. We'll get more into that in one of the next episodes of this series. So as I go through this, one of the things that I do too is I don't just do the overall car. I will dive in close, really blow up some of the things so I can read the details better. And again, what this starts telling me is what are some of the potential surfaces that I can build as I break it down. So as I look at this, I may say, okay, I can see that this here is one nice clean surface. So I'm going to build this first. That's going to be one of my primary surfaces. Based off of that surface, I'm going to start building down the sides. I may come in and build all the way to the front and break this out as a separate surface to get that contour. Not 100% sure. Some of this is, you can plan it all out, but once you start 3D modeling, you want to be able to be prepared to modify and adapt. So this, again, like I say, is just to get an initial thought. I may want to build this surface because it looks as if there's a separate radius. Let me just sketch that so you can see it a little bit better. I may want to build this surface next because I usually like to build my primary surfaces, and then I will do the transitions afterwards, such as radiuses and that. Because if I look at this, I kind of see a radius that goes in here and wraps down. So if I zoom in, I'm going to do that. Now, again, do I potentially want to build this surface next? Am I going to try to build this all as one, such as this, or am I going to want to try to break this out as two? Again, when we start modeling, I'll talk about my thought process and my methodology for determining that. So now we've got this kind of defined on what we're doing, what the forms look like. The next thing I usually like to do is get some reference images to bring into CAD. So with that said, what I do is I do a quick rough layout. Now sometimes you'll be given 2D drawings for your model, but if not, you want to create the 2D models. So what I'm going to go through and do is, create the front, side, and top view. I then can bring those images into my 3D modeling program and use them as underlays to create my curves. So what we'll do is next time I'll have this all set up and we will dive into the modeling. So I hope you're going to follow along with us. If you like this video, subscribe. I will be trying to get one out every week or so, and we'll go from all the way to the end, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a good day.